Great to be at FAU. Great to be back in Boca Raton. I'm trying to think, the last time we did the event here, what did we do it on? Do you remember? It was something good, I remember. And we did bill signing, and I think we did the Medal of Freedom too, Governor's Freedom Medal. Didn't we do that? Yeah, that was pretty cool. Okay, well, we're here today. I'm joined by Ray Rodriguez, who's the Chancellor of the State University System of Florida. I also have President of Florida Atlantic University, Adam Hasner, who's been on the job. How long have you been on the job? 100 days. 100 days. Chairman of the University of South Carolina Board of Trustees, Thad Westbrook, is with us today, and they get appointed by the legislature to be on those boards, which is probably more treacherous politically than getting appointed by the governor. So good on you. We also have Senior Associate Vice Chancellor of Texas A&M University System, Dr. Shonda Gibson. So thank you for being here. So as you might expect, we're here today to talk about higher education, and I'm proud that Florida for many years now has been ranked as the #1 public university higher education system in the country. Part of the reason we earn that is because we have the lowest tuition of any state in the United States. And since I've been governor, the tuition that you pay is like $6,300 in state. That was true when I became governor, and it's still true today. We haven't moved it one penny. And so consequently, 77% of undergraduate students in Florida graduate loan-free and debt-free. And that is not the norm throughout the country. And the percentage continues to increase year over year. I mean, part of it is just the fact that, $6,000 isn't what it used to be, right? I mean, it used to be more inflation, all this stuff. So we've held the line, even as there has been overall inflation, and I think everybody knows in the last 30, 40 years there's been massive inflation in higher education, where we've had a lot of students around the country end up going deep into debt, and they graduate, and some of them end up in programs with degrees that are not worth very much, and they're really in a tough spot. So it's the opposite in Florida. And we have our student performance has gone up so much over the last 20, 30 years that you qualify, most of these students are qualifying for Bright Future scholarships, which is either 100% or 75% of your tuition paid for. So if you have that, you obviously don't need to go into any debt. But even if you don't, that tuition and the expenses, that's manageable if someone wants to work a part-time job or something. I mean, I did that a lot when I was coming up. So that's important, and we're really proud of that. We want to make sure that people can do that. We also have seen what's happened over many decades where some students are told you're not going to be successful unless you get a 4-year degree. That's not true. There's a lot of pathways other than a 4-year degree. So while we're proud of what FAU's doing here in Boca, we're proud of what FIU's doing in Miami, USF, I was there yesterday in Tampa, it's great. And that's a great pathway for a lot of people, but that's not the only pathway, and it's not the best pathway for some of our students as they mature through secondary school. And so we've really put an emphasis on workforce education. So we've more than doubled the apprenticeships that are available in the state of Florida. We have programs even now in middle school for vocational education. A lot of our high schools are doing really, really well, and students are actually graduating high schools in Florida with certifications in things like HVAC and electrical. Guess what? They're going to get hired when they have those types of skills. So there's more than one ways to go about it, and we're not telling you you've got to do this or you've got to do that, but what we are saying is that it's wrong if someone's telling you unless you get a 4-year degree, you're not going to be successful, because I think a lot of people that got pushed that way over the last many decades, a lot of them didn't even end up getting the degree, right? So you go, you take out debt, you toil for a few years, you don't get the degree. Well, you could have just started debt-free right out of high school and been better off at that point. And then some that get degrees are getting degrees that are in kind of more of these, let's just say, non-germane studies that we've seen percolate in academia over many decades. And so, again, that's just not a huge job market for some of the things that people are doing. So this is a great pathway, and we're really, really proud of it. We also, and I think a lot of people have seen what's happened on our university campuses since October 7th of 2023. It really exposed, I think, a soft underbelly of higher education, things that there was rot in the system for a long time. It wasn't just October 7th that caused it, but I think that revealed it in ways when you see things like Columbia University being overtaken by these Hamas demonstrators. You see basically these university administrators impotent in the face of really harassment of Jewish students, faculty, the things that were going on. That did cause a lot of people to say, you know, what is going on these campuses? Now, this is something that we've been concerned about for a long time, because I just know that the people of Florida, they want the universities that they fund with their tax dollars to be about education, not indoctrination. They don't want to send their kids to universities, and instead of focusing on academic rigor, the pursuit of truth, preparing students to be citizens of the Republic, you end up in some type of ideological joyride, which is one, detached from what you really need to be successful, but then two, is likely not consistent with how they raise their kids. And you don't want to work 18 years to instill those values, turn them over, and all of a sudden they're taught something totally different. So higher education has veered throughout our country off really solid foundations that it was meant to be. So in Florida, we've not just talked about that, we've actually acted in ways to deliver reforms so that we can ensure we're operating on a solid foundation. We are the first state in the country, and we may still be the only state, I don't know if any of them have followed suit, to overhaul tenure in universities. And so we now have something called post-tenure review. And so all tenured professors now must undergo those reviews within 5 years, and they can be terminated for poor performance. And I think of what you see both from a financial perspective in universities, the biggest economic dead weight in running a university are unproductive tenured faculty, because they're just there like barnacles on a ship and they don't do anything. And so, you know, you want to be able to process out, like if they're not doing. And then two, those tend to be the types that focus less on research and less on teaching and more on activism. And you know, universities we're not trying to fund activist camps here. That's not what we want to do. If you want to be an activist, go apply to be a professor at Berkeley or some of these other places. I'm sure you'll fit right in, but that's not what we want to do. So using post-tenure review is something that's really important. And, you know, they have done that in a number of universities. I know University of Florida, New College, some of these others. And the media would be like, oh, professors are fleeing Florida. And that's actually not, that's not really the case. It's if you have Marxist professors leaving Florida, that is a good thing for Florida. That is not a bad thing for Florida, but you're replacing these folks with folks who are coming in to teach and to do research. And that's one of the things that we did. We said, okay, you got to hold faculty accountable. You can't just say you get tenure and you can do whatever you want for 30 years. You need to have accountability, but you also need to make sure that we have an ability to bring in really good people. So we have overhauled the hiring ability. So, you know, Adam Hasner, as the president, he can go to MIT, and if there's somebody that's good, he can say, listen, you can come to here, and they can offer them a position. The board of trustees can work and offer positions. We don't want to get into a place where very talented individuals are denied being hired because they're being blackballed by some ideological litmus test. That is unacceptable. And you've seen that in many parts of the country at these universities. You know, we banned these hiring these diversity statements or whatever. Literally, they would make you say these things, and if you weren't willing to do that, then you were totally persona non grata. You had no chance to get hired. So what you've seen is, and we have the Hamilton Center at University of Florida, they've brought in really amazing scholars to be a part of that. Now, we've also, for a couple years, provided a lot of resources. So we did I think the last 2 years has been $100 million each year for universities to be able to offer added compensation. And some of that is to keep some of the good ones that they have here, but some of it's also to entice some of these folks from some of these other parts of the country. And it's ripe. It's ripe because as you've seen kind of the out-of-control woke ideology overtake a lot of these universities, you've got a lot of people that, they've dedicated their lives to being involved in higher education, and they're like, this is not what I signed up for. I believe in truth. I believe 2 plus 2 equals 4. I don't think 2 plus 2 equals 8. And we have to have a grounding in the truth, and you've seen a lot of that veer away where ideology has taken over. So there's a lot of people that want to be in an environment that is really focused on the pursuit of truth, where voices are welcome to be able to have very robust debates. And we've had some great debates on our campuses throughout the state of Florida where people come in from opposing viewpoints and are able to do things. Part of, I think, moving away from the indoctrination bent was our first in the nation, again, legislation to eliminate DEI and focus on merit. And the DEI, some people say, was well-intentioned to start. I don't really know because I wasn't involved in that, but I can tell you how it was practiced was contrary to, I think, the values that we want to uphold, which is merit, achievement, people being treated on the basis of their abilities, not being divvied up by things that are not pertinent to their aptitude. So we did that. Now I think that when we did that, we were going up against the teeth of this, because I guess 2020, 2021, 2022, that was like the wave, right? And so we come in and said no, and oh man, we got a lot of flack for doing that, but now the tide has kind of shifted. And so the wind's at the back. So I know more and more states have done that. And obviously, the Trump administration has leaned heavily against the DE&I for that. And I would say they said it was diversity, equity, inclusion. The way it was practiced around this country was division, exclusion, and indoctrination DEI. And that obviously has no place in our public university system, especially funded by tax dollars. So we are going to focus on merit. We're not going to change standards. We're not going to play games. We want to attract good people. We understand good people come from a wide variety of backgrounds, but ultimately you got to be judged on merit and achievement, and that's really what we're doing, what's really, really important. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in implementing that. It's not, it wasn't necessarily easy initially. Now I think we're in a little bit better place. We also are, you can't be all things to all people when you're talking about higher education. So much of higher education in the last many decades in this country has embraced just whatever the latest ideological fad is. And so you see some of the courses that are offered and things that are just, different from what had been the core of a classical education and, classical liberal arts. As much as we talk about STEM and engineering, maths, it's all important, but really classical liberal arts is something that can really help prepare people to understand things, to think sharply, to think clearly. And I know that we've had universities around the state that have really eliminated some of the fluff on the course offerings. And I think that that's really good. You'll go to some of these places around the country, and if you want to study the foundations of America, how did our republic come to be? How did the revolution? I mean, we're going to have the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in a year. How did we end up launching the country? What went into all that? Honestly, you don't really find very good offerings in many parts of this country. They want to focus on other things. They want to make it about ethnicity and gender and race and everything and see everything through that prism instead of really having students grapple with some of the big ideas that were prevalent at the time. And we actually, one of the things that we've done in our K-12 is we've put a renewed emphasis on American civics. And we had you got to learn the Federalist Papers, you got to learn this, you got to learn that. Great, but you also got to have teachers that understand all that stuff, are passionate about it, and can communicate that and provide the adequate instruction for the students. And what we were finding out was a lot of the teachers, through no fault of their own, they're studying, they weren't offered these types of courses. And so we created a program where if you go through, it's a 50-hour course, you can watch it online. You get a $3,000 bonus, and it's not just civics teachers. I mean, history teachers can do it, English teachers, because we think the civics is the foundation of everything that flows in many respects in the U.S. So they're doing it, but they're actually, we've gotten great scholars, and they're teaching about, okay, how did like British common law affect how the founding fathers understood the Constitution? What about the Enlightenment? What about the Judeo-Christian tradition? All these things. And people, it's like 92% of the folks that go through the course are appreciative and say it was good. So we want to focus on real serious academic rigor. We want to focus on things that really matter, things that are enduring. We do not want to waste someone's education with 4 years of boxing with some ideological fad that just may happen to be the flavor of the day, that has no lasting value beyond the present circumstances. And I think we've done a good job of doing that, but I think we've got a lot more to do. So we want to do it. The other thing that we've done is, while we very much bring in, I think our universities have made a point to bring in folks with views that may not be very prevalent on university campuses throughout the United States of America. We've had some robust debates. I mean, I participated in one of these at New College on the immigration enforcement. I mean, how many universities would ever want to host anything like that? It would just be, it would be a non-starter. So that's important, and we want to do that. But we also understand you have the right to your views. You have the right to express those views. You have a right to stand for those views. But you don't have a right to sabotage the academic process for others. If there's a debate on your campus and you want to get up and scream and yell at the speakers, that's not free speech. And we will hold you accountable. Not whatever you're screaming or yelling, we're not going to necessarily, that's not why we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to hold you accountable for your conduct and for your behavior. And so we made it clear, especially after the Hamas demonstrations, you are not commandeering our university campuses for your agenda. And I know they tried to take over the lawn at Florida State, and the university turned the sprinklers on and got them off that lawn very quickly. They tried to do it others, it didn't work. There were folks who went beyond just expressing views, and some of these views are very, in my judgment, abhorrent, but that wasn't what they were punished for their behavior and their conduct. And people's degrees were withheld. You have to do that. If you don't hold people accountable for their behavior and the conduct, you will get more of that. So we've created an environment where people that are running universities have the backing to be able to uphold the appropriate standards of conduct. And you're at like some commencement speech, and I don't think it happens at FAU, or maybe it did. I don't remember hearing anything. But you have someone, this is a major event for families, for the students, for a lot of the faculty who helped with this. You have someone that comes in. A lot of times there's someone that's pretty prominent that can come in and maybe give a commencement address. And you have like 15 or 20 students just screaming and disrupting and everything like that. That is unacceptable. I know they tried to do that at New College a couple years ago, and the president withheld their diplomas until they apologized to the university community and apologized to the commencement speaker. And I don't know if they were willing to do that, but I think that's totally appropriate. So, we have great protections. We adopted the Chicago model of free speech across our universities. My first year as governor, we do that. But what I've seen going on in these other universities around the country is I've seen universities countenance bad behavior. And that's different than having a view you may disagree with. That's you trying to upend the entire academic process for other students, faculty, parents that are there watching, people that are watching a debate unfold. So we're going to continue to hold people accountable. And I think what happens is, if you let the inmates run the asylum, the inmates are going to run the asylum. They're not just going to sit on the sidelines and twiddle their thumbs. But if you uphold standards of conduct, then a lot of times it's just not worth sacrificing a degree or having some type of punishment for this behavior. And I don't really know why universities have become places, I know this started probably in the 60s, but why universities have been the place where you have some of this. But I think what's happened is a lot of the administrators and some of the faculty around the country, this is behavior that they want to see. I mean, I think that this is like, those are the kind of their people. That's not what we're doing here in Florida, and I know people are appreciative of that. And I know a lot of our students and families were really appreciative of how our universities responded after the October 7th. The fact of the matter is, you were safe in Florida as a student. As a Jewish student, but even as any student, you were safe. There was never any possibility that we were going to allow any of our universities devolve into like a Columbia University. It just wasn't going to happen. And people will point to Florida and they'll say, yeah, Florida, you're lucky you go to Florida because that didn't happen there. But it's not luck. It's just the fact that people know any president of a university that would allow their campus to devolve into a Columbia in the state of Florida would no longer be a president of a university in the state of Florida. I mean, we would have very swift accountability because our leaders need to lead and they need to do what's right. So there's a lot that's gone into higher education over the years. We're really leading the country. I mean, like we do in almost everything, but on this, we've really been, I think, ahead of the curve. We were engaging in this when nobody was talking about it, and a lot of people just thought it was a lost cause. Don't even worry. I remember people that were more conservative, oh, just tell people never to go to college or whatever. And my view, I'm not just going to give up on institutions. Like, I want these institutions to be sound. I want them to be productive, especially with our tax dollars. And so we knew one of the major pieces of legislation we did a few years ago was getting at this issue, and it's kind of in the weeds because, it's just, but there's a reason why some of the things we don't like about universities over the many decades have happened, and it goes back to this accreditation cartel that's developed. So you need to get accredited if you want to be able to have, like, your students, for example, if you're not accredited, they're not eligible for federal student aid. Now, our students don't need that as much because it's a lot cheaper here than if you're going to some of these schools. And look, if you're paying like $80,000 in tuition to go to MIT and you take out loans, you'll probably be fine doing that. But what gets me is there'll be like these fourth-tier private universities. They expect you to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans, and then you get a degree that's not worth the paper it's printed on. I mean, that is a huge problem. So you have this accreditation where you got to go through it, and it's not just undergraduates, it's also law schools, medical schools, and all these things. And who are these accreditors? Did you elect any of these accreditors to anything? No. It's kind of just a self-selected, these juntas kind of have developed where the Department of Education in the past has approved them to be accreditors, and so they basically don't have accountability. And so we've seen that certainly with the American Bar Association, the medical accreditor, the medical accreditation, and then we have this SACS in the Southeast, which is done. And what do they do? Part of the reason the university have done what they do is because the accreditors are telling them they have to do these things. So when we said no DEI, the accreditor was telling our universities, oh, no, you're not going to get accredited unless you do DEI. Who the heck are they to say what our universities have to do? They're telling them they can't follow state law? Are you kidding me? And nobody elected them to make that judgment at all. So what we've seen develop is an accreditation cartel, and the accreditors, by and large, are all singing from the same sheet of music, and it's not what the state of Florida wants to see reflected in its universities in many different respects. So we did a bill. We said to the state university system and our board of governors, and we have our chancellor here, we need alternative accreditation. We can't keep doing this. First of all, we're not going to do it. We eliminated DEI, and we said very clearly, if you're going to pull our accreditation, go ahead and make my day. We will fight you on that. That's fine. But we were in a situation where it takes some time to do this, to have a new accrediting body, and it also requires the approval of the U.S. Department of Education. Now, when under the Biden administration, do you think that the state of Florida would have had a very good chance to get the auto pen on our accreditation overhaul? Probably not. And so that was not something that obviously they saw eye to eye on us with. Fortunately, under the Trump administration and under Secretary Linda McMahon, they believe in overhauling this accreditation process. They want to have new blood in the system. They want to be able to have competing accreditors. And I can tell you, what we're announcing today, I bet you every state in the Southeast is going to rush to want to be accredited by what we're going to be talking about today. But this has had a really negative impact on higher education, the way this is developed, and our reforms here are vitally needed to be able to make sure that our institutions are operating based on sound principle. And if you think about what's happened, and this is not unique to higher ed, I mean, this is kind of the story of the woke era. I think that we're over the hump on that in Florida. We've been over the hump for a while because we killed it here. But overall, throughout the country, I do think we're over the hill here. Although I guess New York City mayor race may say something different. We'll see what happens there. But what's happened during that era, we saw it during COVID too, institutions really became corrupted by ideology. And they were putting ideology ahead of the pursuit of truth. During COVID, so many of these medical associations put ideology over evidence-based medicine. Even today, you have people like the American Society of Pediatrics opposing the Supreme Court's ruling that said states can say you can't perform sex changes on 13-year-old kids. Like, no, we're not going to do that. And they're saying they don't have evidence that this is good, but it's part of their ideological posture. It's part of their belief system, so they're doing. So you've seen that in medical. You've seen that in law with the American Bar Association. The American Bar Association has now become a far-left activist group. And you know what? You have every right to be a far-left activist group, but our law schools should not be captive to having to bend the knee to get accreditation from you. That should not be the way it works. And so we're really looking for a new day here. All of those groups, all of those accreditors, certainly on the DEI, they've been all in on. Our belief and actions to streamline and focus the course offerings on core subjects that really matter, the accreditors fight us on that. You know, they think that you need to have all these kinds of esoteric studies that are just not part of what a classical education is all about. So there's one thing after another that we have to do and we have to fight against. And so now we have the possibility of having a new day. So today, the legislation that we did a couple years ago was important. We have worked on kind of plowing the ground to be able to get into position to move forward in a way that we could have success. And I know that these guys have been working with the U.S. Department of Education under President Trump now for many months. And so I'm proud today to be able to announce that we are, in fact, establishing a new accreditor for higher education, and we're calling it the Commission for Public Higher Education. So this endeavor will introduce a new accreditor into the marketplace. It'll upend the monopoly of the woke accreditation cartels, and it will provide institutions with an alternative that focuses on student achievement rather than the ideological fads that have so permeated those accrediting bodies over the year. Now, this commission is a consortium of higher education systems from several states offering a new accreditation model. And again, we care about student achievement. We care about measurable outcomes. We care about efficiency. We care about pursuing truth. We care about preparing our students to be citizens of our republic. All those things have played second fiddle, if they were even given any credence at all, under these more prevailing accreditation model. So we will establish rigorous, transparent, and adoptable outcomes-based accreditation standards and practices. This will ensure that colleges and universities meet and maintain academic quality and operational excellence on behalf of their students. This will also ensure that reforms enacted under our tenure, my tenure as governor, by the state university system continue to have an impact for many years to come. So the way this works is we're establishing it. You kind of got to go and actually do it for, some period of time. I think USDOE wants to be quick on this, and so eventually they will approve this accreditor as a valid accreditor. So if you go, your institution gets accredited by this new accreditation consortium, that satisfies federal requirements, federal law for United States Department of Education. And that's a big, big deal. And it's important that it get done. And one of the reasons why right out of the gate we've been kind of working with the Trump administration on this is we need this and other competing accreditors. We need these things approved and implemented during President Trump's term of office. The reality is, if it doesn't get approved and stick during that time, you can have a president come in next and potentially revoke it, and they could probably do that very quickly. If we get this done, we do the trial run that we do have to do, we get approval, it starts to stick. All the states, I think almost all the states in our region are going to be favorable to this. Then you could develop a track record. Then it's almost impossible for a future federal administration to try to upend the apple cart. So this has been a long time coming. Obviously, we didn't really have the prospects of launching anything like this successfully during the Biden years, but it's a new day, and I think this is going to make a big, big difference. And the thing about it is, people ask me, well, what's wrong with the universities? Why does Harvard do this? Why did Columbia, all this stuff? And this stuff didn't just happen by accident. There's incentives that have been built in for many years that have shaped the type of outcomes that we're seeing and the behavior that we've witnessed, and the accreditation cartel has been a big part of that. And it's not something that gets a lot of headlines. It's not something that a lot of people follow. But I just think it's wrong to have a bunch of folks that nobody put there. I don't even know how they get in these spots, but they exert all this power over our educational institutions. And so that stops today. Florida and our neighboring states, our sister states who are joining us in this effort, we're going to have the last say on that. So thanks, everybody, for this. It's a great announcement. We're going to hear from a couple other folks. So, Ray, why don't you come up and start us off?
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for your leadership on this matter. I am proud to join an elite group of 5 other public university systems to establish the Commission for Public Higher Education. Working together to launch this are the University of North Carolina system, led by President Peter Hans, the University System of Georgia, led by former Governor, current Chancellor Sonny Perdue, the University of Tennessee system, led by President Randy Boyd, the Texas A&M system, led by incoming Chancellor Glenn Hager, and the University of South Carolina, which you'll hear from Chairman Thad Westbrook shortly. Over the last 2 years, the Gallup survey has revealed that only 36% of Americans have confidence in public higher education. Gallup revealed the reasons for this decline of confidence were threefold: a belief that our institutions were focused on political agendas, indoctrination instead of education. Number 2, that our institutions had the wrong focus and were producing worthless degrees that did not lead to jobs. And number 3, the ever-increasing cost and spiraling student debt. While colleges and universities went down these wrong roads, losing credibility with the American people, accreditors stood by and did nothing. Our accrediting process in the United States is flawed. More than 35% of accredited colleges fail to graduate half of their students. And those schools receive over $20 billion annually from the federal government in student aid. At least a third of the graduates from more than 900 accredited institutions earn less than 150% of the federal poverty line. That's around $19,300. In our current accreditor, SACS, COC, there are nearly 50 four-year nonprofit colleges and universities that have a four-year graduation rate of 20% or less, and yet they're still accredited. After analyzing the financial benefits from attending college relative to cost, a recent study found 31% of students are enrolled in a program with a negative return on investment. Studies have found that less than 3% of accreditor actions involve penalizing an institution due to poor student outcomes or academic programming. A more recent analysis by Stig Leshley of the Post-Secondary Commission reviewed 10 years worth of data from 2012 to 21 of the 7 largest accreditors and found they issued just 107 disciplinary actions that touched on academic quality. In contrast, during that same period, those 7 accreditors issued 11,000 disciplinary actions related to concerns of governance, compliance, or finances. How does this happen? The current accreditors and the current models are all focused on inputs and processes rather than outputs and outcomes. Too much time and effort is spent checking the compliance box and managing the minutiae of bureaucracy with very little focus on real, actual academic excellence. This approach suppresses innovation and it punishes institutions who try to do things differently. Our 6 systems are united by a fundamental belief that academic excellence and student outcomes take precedence over bureaucracy. By coming together around a shared vision, we will drive meaningful reform that will strengthen our institutions and ultimately restore trust in higher education. The Commission for Public Higher Education will offer an accreditation model that prioritizes academic excellence and student success while removing ideological bias and unnecessary financial burdens. These reforms will benefit our faculty, our students, and the hardworking taxpayers who fund our public systems. Through CPHE, public colleges and universities across the country will have access to an accreditation process that is focused on quality, rooted in accountability, and committed to continuous improvement. Thank you.
Adam?
Thank you, Chancellor. Governor, on behalf of the entire Florida Atlantic University community, not only do I want to welcome you to Boca Raton, but I also want to make sure that you send back the very best wishes for a happy birthday to your wife, the First Lady, Casey DeSantis. I also want to recognize a few folks in the audience today, our mayor of the city of Boca Raton, Mayor Scott Singer, our state representative, Peggy Gossett-Seidman, our chairman of the board of trustees, Piero Busani, our student government president, Darsham Gonzalez, and trustees Linda Stock and Bill Trapani. I would tell you all, as a university that is founded with the mission to cast aside the ivy trappings of higher education and with a school motto of where tomorrow begins, this is an appropriate setting to launch the new Commission for Public Higher Education. And we are honored to host today's announcement as our state joins with a coalition of other success and reform-oriented states in creating a better way for higher education accreditation, one designed to transform the future of public higher education and build stronger, more accountable public universities. And while I may be new to this role, I join the other university presidents in recognizing that this change is long overdue for the advancement of all public universities and the students that we serve. It is time for an accreditation process that prioritizes performance over process and helps to ensure high-quality education and learning environments while creating accountability for student success and career pathways. Competition and transparency in the accreditation process should be welcomed, along with the implementation of a streamlined process that doesn't overburden institutions like ours with unnecessary costs and reams of red tapes and requirements that do not align with the mission of the modern public university. Now, I know a lot of hard work has gone into building this consortium of like-minded state university systems who collectively understand that the future of higher education is not found in timid tweaks to the status quo. And so I want to applaud Governor DeSantis for bringing this all together and for his continuous bold leadership that has resulted in Florida being the leader in higher education that it is. And while many other states are cutting budgets and closing campuses and raising tuition, Florida continues to innovate in order to address the challenges of the future. And this is yet another example of that leadership. I also want to thank Chancellor Rodriguez for his strong stewardship over our state university system that remains the envy of the nation. And I want to say thank you and welcome to the other states and universities joining in this innovative partnership. Together, we are leaving behind the legacy systems and failed institutions of the past while charting a new course in higher education that puts student success at the forefront of everything that we do. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I first want to start by thanking Governor DeSantis for your leadership. I want to thank you for your leadership in leading higher education in Florida and working together with other states to make changes in higher education. This is an important moment for us in America and higher education as we look at opportunities for reform. I want to thank the State University System of Florida and their leadership and the Board of Governors for creating this new entity. I want to thank the other partner university systems who are participating in this collaborative effort. We're very proud to join each of you, and we want to say thank you to everyone who's put work into this new endeavor. At this moment, for us in higher education, we want to make the important changes that need to be made that have become evident over the last several years, where we are recommitting and refocusing on students. We're refocusing on our mission to serve students, to educate students, and to develop knowledge through research. That is our mission. It is not our mission to be involved in culture wars or political activity. It is our mission to focus on our students and student outcomes. I also think it's important for higher education to demonstrate to taxpayers why they should invest in institutions of higher learning. It's their dollars that we're using to educate students, and it's important that we demonstrate to them why we are of value to their communities and their states. And we do that by demonstrating that we can make important changes, by demonstrating that we can be innovative, by demonstrating that we can work together and collaborate to help all of our students. So this effort to create the commission to reform accreditation in America is an important one. It's part of that dialogue that we should have with taxpayers to demonstrate that we can make important changes and that we can do our job to serve our students and fulfill our mission in a very responsible and efficient way. I believe that this commission will do just that in leading changes in accreditation, and I think America will benefit from it. So thank you again, everyone, for your work on this. Thank you again, Governor, for your leadership.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Well, thank you. You live in Columbia? Is that? Oh, okay, yeah. Beautiful campus. I've been there a few times. We really appreciate it. And President, what do you have in the budget? I'm looking at it. Is there any last-minute pitch?
Yeah, we're $10 million in PICO to build a new multidisciplinary health services building to grow our College of Medicine and College of Nursing, and $10 million in non-recurring operational support that we plan to invest in non-recurring programs and investments to grow our research platform.
Okay, what do you think? Approve or not approve? All right, we'll approve it. All right, so we'll do good on that, and no red pen on that. And What do you have? What's your biggest one? Those are your most important ones? Okay, well, we'll do that for sure, yeah. Spend it, how much is that? Okay. And who, and you, that's in, that's a TED project, I guess? Okay. All right, well, my guys, flag that and I'll go look back. I'm probably going to be supportive of it. I don't remember it. I'm kind of going through all this. And so, you know, we signed one of the bills, you know, coming in. We've been signing different stuff. And, you know, I hand out the blue pens whenever we sign. We're at USF and we did a couple great bills on mental health. Hand out all the blue pens. And it's got, you know, the seal of the state of Florida. It's got my signature. We also have red pens with the seal of the state of Florida and my signature, and those are veto pens. Now, sometimes people want the veto pens, right? Because if there's something policy that's bad and you don't want it, then you do it. And I know a lot of taxpayers appreciate some of the times we wield that on appropriations, but our universities typically don't want the red veto pen on any of the appropriations. So, but we'll make sure to help out FAU and really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. And, you know, the state of Florida is obviously strong. We got, you know, incredible momentum. And our higher education system, I think, is an important part of that. And so I'm just pleased that you can grow up in Florida, you can go to high school here, and you can get a high-quality education without having to go deep into debt or even go into debt at all. And that's really, really important. As a guy that when I was younger was really scrapping to work this job. And I think it's good. It made me better. But I mean, you know, we took out loan, we did stuff. And it just shouldn't be something that you're mortgaging your entire future over. It's important. We want people to do well, but it needs to be affordable, and our university system's been able to do that. And obviously, we've had support from the Florida legislature in supporting things like Bright Futures and some of the other programs that have been really, really meaningful. But today is good. Today is. It isn't going to, like the average person that says, oh, they're going to set up a new accreditation body. You know, it's not necessarily like that's going to cause everyone to immediately say, oh, wow. But I'll tell you, this is important. You don't get to shape institutions in a positive way without you got to go 2 or 3 levels down sometimes. And we've identified this accreditation cartel as an issue for a long time. Florida's state really leading to do something about it. And I think this accreditor that gets up and running, Florida, South Carolina, I think Georgia is going to be interested, Texas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, you're going to have the southeastern states, I think, really gravitate to this, partially because the SACS has been such a problem and people want to get away from it, but partially because they think this accreditation consortium is really offering the type of vision that the leadership in those states believe in. And that's going to be really, really good and really, really positive. And all those states have done good stuff in higher ed anyways, but, you know, it's been more difficult when you have this accreditation cartel nipping at you all the time. You know, now I think it's going to be really, really smooth sailing. So this is going to take a lot of work, but I'm glad we have a partner at the U.S. Department of Education now that is supporting this. And it will absolutely, people will look back and say when these states did this, that it really made a difference. And you'll see some of the other states that would never want to go in this direction, that are going to cling to the old model. You'll see even more separation between what our states are doing and what theirs are doing, and that'll be in our favor 100%. Okay, we got any questions?
Yeah, hi, it's Scott Travis on Sentinel. I talked to, in 2023, I talked to the director of SACS, and she said they were the only regional accreditor that did not do DEI.
That is not true at all. No, I mean, is there a single university that hasn't had issues with SACS in our system? I mean, I know they've had a lot at University of Florida. I know they've had a lot at all those. Do you want to address that?
We've had multiple issues with SACS on a variety of issues beyond DEI.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and then every 10 years, generally, you get reaccredited. Is that process going to continue or going to wait until the current accreditation ends? And there's also a state law that says that you have to change accreditors every cycle. So will that law still?
Well, yeah, so people are going to be embracing this accreditor. I mean, that's part of the reason why we're doing it, and I think it's going to be really, really positive.
Governor, this morning the Supreme Court ruled to allow states to cut Medicaid funds to Planned Parenthood. Your thoughts on that?
I don't think we provide that to Planned Parenthood in Florida. I don't know that we've ever done, but to the extent that that is something that gives the legislature more ability to protect taxpayers, I'm sure that they're going to want to take advantage of that, and obviously, we would be receptive.
Governor, you've always been an advocate for restoration in the Everglades. Any concern about what's being built there and the impacts it might have on the
No, because there's already, this alligator Alcatraz for the deportations, it's catchy, right? So it's gotten a lot of play. The reality is we're leading the country on a state basis and working with the federal government to enforce immigration laws. I called the special session at the beginning of the year prior to President Trump taking office because I knew that we needed to make it clear in law that our state and local law enforcement entities had a responsibility to not just not sabotage, but to actively assist, because that's how you get most of the interactions. And so that was a fight. I mean, the Speaker of the House tried to tank it, and they tried to do an amnesty bill, basically, and we won because the voters were really upset at what they were trying to do. So we got that in law. And so we've been doing this, and I think Tom Homan will always cite Florida as the model for collaboration. The reality, though, is you can go on and you can round up 25 illegal aliens, some of whom have records, some of whom may have deportation orders. Who knows? But ICE has limited ability to hold and process them. They have limited capacity. So we have some in our local jails. The problem is we have normal U.S. citizen criminals that are in the jails. And so one of the things they've said to us is, if you can help us expand the footprint so that we have a place to stage process so that we can effectuate more repatriations of these folks, that would be beneficial. So the facility, there's already a training facility in the Everglades. It's the Collier-Dade Training Airport. We use it for storm response. People do use it for training flights, but what it is it gets all this process out of the hair of the people of Florida. You're not going to have to worry about this. It's remote. This is something that's already built. Now, there's different things that are being added to the airport, but there's no different footprint at all. So it has nothing to do in terms of Everglades impact or restoration. I think people are just trying to say that because they just don't want Florida assisting with the deportations. There's a lot of people that want to have open border. I get that, but that's not the policy of the state. So we are going to do it. We'll probably have another staging facility for processing at Camp Blanding. But the reality is they don't have enough capacity, even close to enough capacity. This is going to be a force multiplier. We are not and it's reimbursable by the federal government for costs. We are not in the business like New York City was doing for so many years, putting people up, illegals in hotels and doing all this stuff. The reason why we're having this to be able to be staged is so the feds can process folks and then remove them from our country. And that's the only reason why we're interested in this, because it helps fulfill President Trump's mission. But there'll be zero impact on that. Now, we have been talking about purchasing this it's kind of been in the background. I've been in favor of us doing it. And I think my plan would probably be, if we did eventually purchase it, we would look at potentially just disbanding the facility, but that facility has been there for a long time, and I'm not sure what that would mean. Maybe that would help Everglades, maybe it won't. I think most of it's actually not even in Dade County, it's in Collier County. So we'll look to see whether that deal gets done, but in the interim, you don't want to do this in ways that are going to impinge on Floridians and taking away space that we need for other things, particularly to hold actual U.S. citizen criminals. You don't want folks escaping in neighborhoods or close by. So there ain't nowhere to escape from. I can tell you that when you're there. I mean, you're in a swamp, and yes, this is a facility that's been built for many years. But it's as secure as it gets. And I think what the feds will do is then they will process and then remove. And so we'll keep that cadence going if it works. What I'm not going to do is just us being to house and feed indefinitely just for the sake of doing that. I have no interest in doing that. I don't think Floridians want us to be doing that. I don't think that's what the federal government's policy is. I don't think that's what they want us to do. I think they want to effectuate the removals, but that's why we're doing it, to help effectuate the removals. And I think it's going to be effective. And then we're also, Camp Blanding is in northeastern Florida. That's where our National Guard has their main training site. And there's just a lot of room, there's a lot of ability to potentially do that. So we're working on that as a kind of a northern Florida outpost, and then the Collier-Dade training airport would be the southern outpost. Both of those, of course, are very secure facilities, and I think would probably serve the mission well.
Any sense on cost, sir?
Well, it's reimbursable by the federal government. I mean, people have said they can get up to $625 million. It's not going to cost that. Reality is this is an important federal mission. It is eligible for reimbursement. At the same time, even if it wasn't, we've put our own resources to bear in Florida to protect Floridians against illegal immigration. For example, I launched Operation Vigilant Sentry for the boats off the Keys and off southern Florida. You'd have boats coming in from Haiti, from Cuba, from the Bahamas illegally, and the Coast Guard's job is to stop. But what happened, and they do a good job, but Biden did not have enough Coast Guard ships. So we supplemented with our vessels, FWC, other agencies, and I think it's probably now been in effect for close to 2 years, a year and a half. But we've, because of our efforts on the state, we've interdicted about 18,000 illegals that were then turned over to the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard sent them back, mostly to these island countries here. So what would the cost be if those folks all made it to shore? Forget about even the crime, although when you stop these people, you are finding in some of the boats firearms, contraband, all this other stuff. 100% you're finding that in a lot of instances. But put that aside. Just being a public charge, how much does that cost the citizens of Florida? How much does it cost our schools? How much does illegal immigration cost our schools? Because the U.S. Supreme Court has said if someone's illegal, in the U.S., you still have a right to go to public school on taxpayer dime. I think that decision was actually not rightly decided, but that's happened in the 80s. And so what about space in schools, overcrowding? What about all these things? What about our criminal justice system for folks that do get in trouble with the law? That adds cost. So this is reimbursable by the feds. We obviously, submit that and get reimbursed. But what we've done to fight illegal immigration, some of the things that we've done over the years and continue to do, to me, that's a good use of funds, because what people will say is, oh, well, just let the feds do everything. And the reality is, under Biden, the feds weren't doing anything. So I had to step up to do that. Now, under the Trump administration, they are doing all that they can, but they don't have enough resources right now to fully effectuate the president's policy. So we're stepping up to do that and to be a force multiplier. But I can tell you, we will save money in the state of Florida if you have no illegal immigration. I mean, that is just 100% true. It does impose costs on our communities. So I'm glad that DHS has signed off on this particular endeavor. I think it's important. Our legislature did provide a few $100 million at the beginning of the current calendar year for our sheriffs and some of the others to deal with it. And I think the one thing is just having a space to process, detain people so that you can stage them to be able to send them back. That's really kind of the main currency that people are looking for now. So we're in a position, with our Division of Emergency Management, I mean, we can set this stuff up quicker than anybody. You've seen it over the years. Obviously, on our hurricane response, you guys haven't seen it as much because they've all been hitting the West Coast. And hopefully, for your sake, that doesn't show. Hopefully, nobody gets hit. But when they get in the Gulf, it's got to hit something, right? I mean, that's the problem. When it comes in the Atlantic, a lot of times they ride the coast or go up. And so sometimes, the East Coast, I think, has been considered to be a little bit more resistant, knock on wood. But when we're preparing for hurricanes, I mean, at a moment's notice, we're there. These counties will be, hey, can you do this? It's there. It's there. We've got a really good, well-oiled machine, and that's been put into practice not just with storm response. It's been put in practice when we launched the monoclonal antibody clinics during COVID. You know, you remember people, they needed treatment. They weren't getting the treatment so we got it. We set up clinics around the state. And honestly, we gave thousands of people got these, and it helped a lot of people. And that was done, oh, you need something in West Palm? All right, the next day we'd have something up and running. That was all emergency response doing that. And yeah, we'd have physicians and the health people that would actually operate it, but to set up and everything, they do it. All the stuff that we've done here on the coast fighting the illegal immigration. Heck, the transports, Martha's Vineyard, all this stuff, all done through emergency management. So we do really, really well with that, and I think it's going to work really good. But yeah, any sense that somehow like this is going to have any impact at all on the overall Everglades there's zero impact. Yep.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for being on our campus. It's exciting. I work here, so I'm really glad.
What do you do?
I'm a professor.
Of what?
Communication studies.
Good.
I'm actually the faculty senate president.
Oh,
it's
nice.
wonderful to have you. We're excited about our new president. I'm glad you're able to meet with our local leaders. We have so many successes, such upward inertia here. It's fantastic that you're here. I actually have a question about the consortium. I don't know if you want to answer it or one of the delegates or the chancellor. I just would like to hear a little bit more detail on how you think the mechanisms of that will work. You know, traditionally an accrediting body has a sort of independence, and it also, of course, has to respond to both sort of consumer/company resource needs and disciplinary needs. So I'm thinking, how do you work those kind of different trajectories to create this new consortium? Just details on that.
You want to take it, Ray? Yep, thank you.
Good question. Today's announcement is about launching. Those are details that'll be worked out. I can assure you we are meeting with the U.S. Department of Education. The people who are working on this full-time, who have been tasked by other state systems, have tasked us with individuals working in their system who have experience in accreditation with the U.S. Department of Education. So while we are not prepared to go into the details of those answers today, I can assure you people who are qualified and experienced are working on those very answers.
Okay, so we're happy with this announcement. I think it's going to make a difference. This is obviously something that there's a lot of irons in the fire that go into something like this. So, but we have great support in Washington, and I know a lot of our states, particularly in this region, that are of like mind, really want to see some positive reforms here. So this will be ongoing. We'll be working on this, and you know, right after the election, I mean, I told Ray, I said, Ray, this is our chance to do it. We're going to be able to get approval for this under the Trump 47. So it's like, we've got to do it. So I'm really grateful. And then we are going through the budget. I think those of you who follow state politics, legislative stuff, we thought we'd get a budget in early May. Fiscal year ends June 30th. They didn't quite do that, and they ended up producing one probably about 45 days after deadline, which, you know, is their prerogative to do. The reality, though, is there's a lot to go through. So we've been going through it. I mean, like, I'm kind of numb with all the different line items that are in it. So there's a lot of different things. I've got to go one by one, approve or disapprove all those. So we're still working through that. We've worked through a lot of it. We will have that done, obviously, before July 1st. We'll sign the budget and issue any veto. Well, there obviously will be vetoes, so you'll do that. And then we still have some legislation that's outstanding, and we will sign and/or veto the rest of those bills. I mean, I think most of the bills that are outstanding are fit for signature, but there are going to be some pieces of legislation that will get vetoed. So that will happen over the next probably all that will come to head over the next 3 or 4 days. And at that point, we will have the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget in place. And people can go and do their thing at our universities and all around the state of Florida. So thanks, everybody. God bless. We'll see you.